Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. In this video, we're going to talk about mainstream media and the tears on the horizon. Apparently, a bunch of CNN people are going to get cut pretty soon because of this split. We've been covering this. Warner Brothers Discovery is going to split into two parts, and Zaslav is going to take with him the stuff that he actually wants, like DC and HBO. All that stuff goes with him, and his CFO Wiederfels is that his name? He's going to take all the crap, right? And CNN is some of the crap. Some of their other networks are some of the crap, like Cartoon Network. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about this, that social media is killing traditional media. People are listening to podcasts and watching YouTubers and going out to Substack. Speaking of which, news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com. We're going to try to build this up. Everything is kind of upended now. In this landscape, we got some websites. We're going to try to consolidate everything kind of in one place. So go to news.clownfishtv.com. Help support us over there. We've got paywalled content, including Geeky's rant we put up this week. So thank you so much for that. Anyway, people are going to social media. They don't trust linear news on linear TV. They don't trust newspapers anymore because the bias has been revealed. The games have been kind of revealed to the general public. And look, these games have been played for years. It was just never as apparent as it had become in the last 8 to 10 years. And a lot of these companies were propped up with venture capital. They were never really that profitable. In fact, we're looking at some of these companies like BuzzFeed, and they were like, oh, we're worth billions of dollars, and then they go public and they land flat on their faces. See also Vice and Vox and whatever. And social media tends to cut through the noise, right? People find voices that resonate with them. They find people they think are telling you the truth, and then they tune out the mainstream media. So let's talk about this before we get into it any further. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Maybe we'll go with the CNN story first, and then we'll talk about just the whole landscape. So this is coming from the Daily Mail. This is a couple of days ago. Warner Brothers Discovery's shock split into two distinctive companies. This is a sign the jobs and hefty salaries of CNN's top talent are on the line, according to media insiders. Okay. So they said the dramatic move could be detrimental to CNN, which is already grappling with plummeting ratings. Inevitably, Gunnar, that'd be Wiedenfels, will be looking at CNN and deciding if he can maintain relatively similar profits at a mere fraction of the cost. A former CNN reporter who now works for Puck wrote in an opinion piece. Again, Puck is a newsletter. It's not mainstream media. It's not talking head on TV. This will have perceptible ramifications on the talent side. Why, for instance, would Gunnar pay Anderson Cooper $18 million a year? What? $18 million a year for Anderson Cooper when Caitlin Collins draws the same ratings at roughly a fifth of the salary. It's still too much, right? An anonymous source familiar with the state of the left-leaning news network spoke with Fox News, reiterating there are tears on the horizon. They believe bean counter Wiedenfels will go after high-salaried stars, going against the precedent set by former CNN boss Jeff Zucker, who was forced out before the merger. It's not just the overpriced talent, it's the overpriced producers, the overpriced executives, the superfluous reporters who are barely on the air. And all will either be exited or forced to take massive pay cuts. Yeah, so this is the thing. It's pretty sad when you've got Joe Rogan, right? And he's got a relatively small staff. I mean, he's probably got a bigger staff now that he's like a huge, huge deal. But you've got podcasters like Rogan making CNN look absolutely pathetic. Right? So many people out there that have very, very small staffs or no staff. I mean, a guy with a webcam can bring in more viewers than CNN with their, polished studios and their, the machine underneath them. And there is so much bloat in media. I mean, you have a lot of people working at these companies that really don't need to be there. So many salaries that need to be paid. And really all the public wants is somebody that they trust in somebody that they resonate with, right? They don't need to have, do you need to do hair and makeup for Joy Behar, right? I mean, how much does that cost? Just throw a damn filter on her and call it a day. Turn Joy Behar into a VTuber. Oh my God, I'm going to give him ideas. But, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't need all of this Hollywood glitz and glamour that's been kind of brought to the news. And the news, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, even newscasters were held to like this loft, like, oh my God, it's Dan Rather, it's Walter Cronkite. And we don't have reporters like Walter Cronkite anymore. We don't even have Barbara Walters anymore. It's, you know what I'm saying? So you're going to have to sell for podcasters, I guess, because you're not going to get the truth from the mainstream media. And it's all crumbling. It's not sustainable. Again, when, and I've seen this, I've seen it on social media. I've seen it on YouTube. CNN will have a live streamer. They'll run, 24/7, whatever. But then you'll go out and like freaking Tim Pool will get, 10 times the audience that CNN gets on social media. It's wild. And this is why they hate YouTubers so much. This is why they hate podcasters so much. This is why they're constantly trying to find hit piece after hit piece on YouTubers, hit piece after hit piece on Joe Rogan, because they took the eyeballs. They took the advertising dollars too. We'll talk about that, because basically YouTube and streaming, it's taking all the advertising from companies like CNN. Right? Nobody's advertising there because nobody's watching it, or at least not actively watching it. Same with MSNBC. I said, all right. Zucker, they're talking about Zucker. They said CNN's first and second tier talent now earn roughly 5 times what they're worth. This insider says, while Anderson Cooper earns $18 million a year, Jake Tapper, who hosts The Lead with Jake Tapper, brings in $7 million a year. Wolf Blitzer's salary is about $15 million. Chris Wallace's is approximately $8 million. Collins earns about $3 million as a primetime anchor. I had to look it up. Well, Blitzer's not dead yet. I thought he was. No offense to Mr. Blitzer. Is that his? That can't be his real name. That can't be his real name. No offense to Mr. Blitzer, but I thought you were dead. Anyway, since last year, the network ratings declined in all categories, and the matter may only get worse over the upcoming year. This is Kagan, a research unit of global market intelligence, estimates CNN will lose subscribers and revenue despite the strategic split. Revenue is expected to plummet by $500 million. Wow. The insider source said that Global Network CEO should slash CNN's cost by 50 to 60% with no impact on revenue or ratings. Wiedenfels could start by making 70% cuts to show... Wow. To all show teams for CNN, bringing their staffing in line with that of their competition. It'll be most devastating for the rank and file with no union protections. There will be massive layoffs, and those remaining will be asked to do the work of their departed colleagues, as every company everywhere. But here's the truth, and it sucks. I've been there. I've been there on multiple occasions, different organizations I've worked at. There's no such thing as job security anymore. Like, you need to get that out of your head. There's no such thing as job security anymore, and you can't shell out more money per month than you're bringing in, right? I mean, that's like, I love the comic book industry, right? They're like, hey guys, sales are at a low, books aren't selling. Marvel books apparently are selling under 50,000 units a month. Like the top selling books, like Amazing Spider-Man, supposedly, according to Wes on Thinking Critical, is like under 50,000 books a month. Let's all unionize and ask for higher page rates. It's like, oh my God, now is not the time to ask for that. So we got that going on. And then this dropped on the Wrap. It said the big picture: streaming and social media climb amid traditional media's slow motion breakdown. The headlines all point toward the decline of linear and traditional models, with the nagging question of whether new means of distribution can pick up the slack. I think you're going to have a lot more citizen journalists or independent journalists or podcasters or talking heads, whatever, streamers, making less money than Anderson Cooper, $18 million a year for Anderson Cooper, making less money than Anderson Cooper. But I think the public is going to trust them more, right? And for the advertisers, it's going to be a good deal because they're going to get a larger audience at a fraction of the price. It said traditional media has experienced what often feels like a slow motion nervous breakdown, which would hardly come as news to anyone operating in the thick of it. Yet occasionally a week comes along with distinct stories that help crystallize the larger picture, almost like the cop finally piecing things together at the end of The Usual Suspects. In the last few days, a handful of reports speak to trends that coalesce into a single clarifying moment. Old media is limping along on wobbly legs, if not its deathbed, and efforts to save it are merely prolonging the inevitable. So CNN is in hospice, to borrow from a friend of mine who was like, his like cable's in hospice. CNN is in hospice, and MSNBC, all these linear networks. A shift in consumption patterns for entertainment, news, and information has hamstrung many long-established means of disseminating content while pushing newer forms to the forefront, clocking each of these developments as they fly by, sometimes while on the move ourselves, increasingly via our phones. The connections aren't always obvious. Let's pause. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, they said Tuesday. So this is like kind of unpacking the situation here, I guess. On Tuesday, the Wrap covered a Reuters poll that found social media surpassed TV and websites as the preferred source for news. I believe that 100%. That's the first time it's happened. 54% reported accessing news via social media compared to 50 and 48% for TV and the web. The same day, Nielsen reported that streaming accounted for 45% of TV usage, representing a surge of more than 70% over the past 4 years. It has lifted that form of distribution to narrowly exceed the combined figure for broadcast. It said part of that shift has been driven by YouTube. And as if on cue, on Wednesday, they boasted short form video platform YouTube Shorts has hit 200 billion streams, a Carl Sagan-like number that reflects the increased popularity of bite-sized programming consumption. Actually, I'm going to be honest, I think YouTube Shorts has destroyed the platform because everything is a short. It's basically TikTok. And for creators, I'm going to be honest, it's not great. Shorts don't make money. They really don't make that much money. But you watch one short too, like that's all YouTube recommends to you is shorts after that. Like, oh, you watched one? Okay, so watch these 30 other shorts about things you probably don't care about, right? Teens and young adults are spending less time watching movies and TV shows while allocating more to snippets of video and getting their news from TikTok, not those stodgy cable networks. Yeah, people want to cut to the chase. Even with our content, I mean, we're basically a podcast, right? I think at this point, but people look at the timestamp and they're like, oh, this is a 20-minute video. I don't want to watch it. Yeah, if you can break that down into like 5 minutes, yeah, thanks. Well, I might watch it 5 minutes. I might watch it, but I do the same thing. I take a look at these people's live streams. I'm like, yeah, I can't watch 2.5 hours of middle-aged dudes talking about middle-aged dude stuff. No offense, because I've been on these podcasts before. I've been on these streams before, but I'm even like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't sit through this. Like I literally could go watch, the extended edition of one of the Lord of the Rings movies. And I'm not going to sit through 2.5, 3 hours of people just talking about whatever. Netflix unveiled a groundbreaking deal Wednesday to carry the output from TF1. That's interesting. So Netflix is going to be carrying more of this stuff. Amazon issued a memo that served as a not so subtle warning to its employees about the use of AI. Basically get on board or get out of the way. Yeah. They said that they're comparing it to the newspaper industry, which I feel that. So, again, for those of you who have been watching the channel for a while, I actually am or was a journalist, like an actual journalist who did actual news and actual newspaper. In fact, some of my stuff back in the day wound up being circulated via the Associated Press. I had contacts with the Associated Press, the whole thing. This would have been back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I jumped ship from that and I got into web development because I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And this feels like that. This feels like if you're working for a mainstream media outlet at this point, you need to be looking at your options. You need to be, I wouldn't even keep your resume updated because nobody's going to hire you. There aren't going to be any jobs, right? You see what I'm saying? There are not going to be any jobs. So we're seeing more and more of these journalists. People are kind of like, they're like, why are they going to Substack? Why are they doing the podcast? I'm like, because that's the only option there is, really. And honestly, it's the best option for you. Once Anderson Cooper is gone at $18 million, like it's going to be up to a handful of people making if they're lucky, $1 million a year or something. And some people are doing that, right? But you're not going to make $18 million a year doing this anymore, unless you're like a Joe Rogan or something. They said the newspaper industry dealt with the game of digital chicken first. The web gobbled up its classified ads. They said it fell victim to those forces despite the alarm bells sounding in print dollars for digital dimes. Yeah, they tried very hard to dissuade people. And I remember they tried very hard to dissuade people from going to the internet. And then eventually they kind of bit the bullet and they're like, well, we have a digital edition too. And we're going to charge you as much for the digital edition as we do for the print edition. People are like, I can just go to Facebook and get my classifieds and my news and stuff for free. And then we saw more and more papers fold. We saw a lot of newspapers cut back on the editions that they would print throughout the week. I know of some papers that only print like a Wednesday and a Sunday edition. And then the daily news, you have to get on their website, again, which they charge as much to access the website as they do, buying the paper. So you're talking like $30, $40 a month or whatever to read that stuff online. And by the time it's on their website, it's probably already been on Facebook or, been on TikTok or whatever. So if you step back a little further, it's easy to weave more pixels in the picture, like Warner Brothers Discovery and Universal spinoffs with their declining cable assets. They said the usual suspect, the messy cop defense is scattered work by telling a colleague it all makes sense. When you look at it right, you got to stand back from it. Yes. The daily scramble of these jobs, including the race to cover these stories, it can be difficult to take time to seek perspective or try connecting the dots. This isn't hard. You just don't want to admit. This is what's so infuriating about this. Is people like us, podcasters, YouTubers, we've been telling you for years this was going to happen. It's not just us, right? But we've been telling you for years this was going to happen. And they're like, well, oh my God, nobody watches the CNN or the MSNBC. We don't understand. What happened? What happened? It's like you lost the plot years ago, and people are tuning out. But again, these are corporate owned entities, so they're going to have to make record profits. You can't like go to your corporate overlords and be like, hey guys, we're going to start doing TikTok and we're going to like give away the news for free. And then maybe some people throw some money into a Patreon or something for us. I mean, they're going to laugh you out of the freaking room. They're going to be like, no, we need record profits, billions of dollars. So basically they just keep hammering that same business model until there's nothing left. Right? Until it just basically, it just kind of all collapses, but they have to juice it for as much money as they can. And now we're looking at the end. We're looking at end stage CNN, end stage, all these networks, MSNBC, all this stuff, because they would not pivot when they needed to pivot, or if they tried to pivot, they did it badly. It's pretty much over. So now these companies are going to get as much money out of them as they can. And then they'll eventually probably just, shut it down, sell it off. I don't know what's going to happen to them. But there we go, guys. End stage CNN, end stage MSNBC, doom and gloom. No, but not really, because there are so many other voices now that just in the last 4 or 5 years have popped up. Fresh voices, authentic voices, regardless of your political perspective. Right. There are a lot of people you can listen to, and they might not get it right all the time. We don't get it right all the time, but you try. And you don't have corporate overlords you have to answer to, except Google. But there we go. So speaking of all this, again, go to news.clownfishtv.com. We're going to try to ramp things up over there. We're trying to figure it out too. Everybody's trying to figure it out. Everything is changing. Even on YouTube, everything is definitely changing very quickly. So news.clownfishtv.com. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later. For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.